Why hello there. Today I'm sitting down with you in front of my bookshelf to talk about Lore, Alexandra Bracken's newest book release of 2021 and considered by a lot of people to be one of the most anticipated books of 2021. Now listen, books are expensive, so I'm just gonna tell you what my thoughts are on it and if it's worth the hefty purchase of $18.99 US dollars. So I will be going through a non-spoiler section and then a spoilery section. If you haven't read the book, this part's for you. Please excuse my very crappy pronunciation throughout this review because I'll put you right up. Basically, Lore is a descendant of Perseus. No, she is not a Gorgon. That confused me in the beginning, just to let you know. She is a girl, like she likes to remind you multiple times in the book. And she is a hunter. And basically you're a hunter if you are a descendant of a Greek hero. So for instance, Cadmos, Odysseus, Theseus, Achilles, Perseus, Heracles, Jason, etc, etc. So these houses, what do? Well, every 7 years, 7 Greek gods that are being punished by Zeus go to Earth and have to be mortal for a whole week. And during that week, if a hunter from one of the houses kills a god, then they take the power of that god and basically become that god. So you want a god in your house because that makes your house a stronger line. So the story picks up whenever Lore runs into an old friend that she presumed to be dead. And they're finding out all of this shady stuff about the Aegon. I'd say it's a kind of, you know, a political book in the sense that they're the world building, you know, with the houses and the gods and basically just the fight for power. One of the houses who has a new Ares, he is going around and scaring the other houses into submission to follow him. So they have to go and try to defeat this new god. I feel like that's all I can really say without giving out too many spoilers, but the whole vibe of the book is very action-packed. Every chapter, they're always doing something, and I will say that is very enjoyable. The part that I didn't enjoy as much was just because there was so much going on in the plot. I feel like the characters were a bit neglected, but you could tell that Alexandra Bracken did a lot of research for this book. So if you're into Greek mythology and just want to learn some stuff or go on an adventure that's very quick paced, I would suggest this book for you. Hello people who have read the book or just don't care to read the book. Here are my more in-depth opinions about it. To be honest, I really wanted something more like Percy Jackson vibes. I saw that it was released by Disney Hyperion and I was like, oh, Percy Jackson was also released by Disney Hyperion. It looks like a fun young adult book with fun characters and Jesus fucking Christ, all the gore and blood, very dark imagery in this book. Reading it at midnight was not a good idea. But like I said in my non-spoilery review, I do feel like the characters were a bit neglected. You know, I think the thing that excited me the most was whenever she found out that Castor was like the new Apollo or whatever, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. Athena, I didn't vibe with a lot. I mean, she was just kind of like a robot to me, like a little android, had superpowers. I think the beginning, you could tell that Bracken was developing the characters a lot more, especially with Miles and Lore. What stands out to me is their interaction at the diner. But once the plot started to kick up, a lot of it was just describing what they were doing. Yeah, duh, that's what books are. But there wasn't a ton of internal stuff besides, oh, I love Castor or whatever, or like, oh, my family's dead, which, yeah, that is really sad, but I think that there needed to be a bit more character development so that the punch of her family dying just be more, I guess. I think it was really sad, obviously, how her parents died and how her siblings died. I think it just harped on it a bit too much. That's it. I think it just used it and harped on it a bit too much. There were some characters that I felt like didn't do much for the plot. For instance, Iroh, I think it was very cool that she was a person of color character and her dad was Heartkeeper, but I feel like she wasn't developed like at all except talking about how they used to be friends. Besides that, she just kind of seemed angry all the time. Miles, his main personality trait was that he was quirky and he was Korean and his mom called him all the time. Van just seems stressed out a lot and he knows technology. To be honest, I imagine him as Ambrose from The Chilling Adventure of Sabrina, and I feel like Ambrose was just kind of stressed out a lot. So that's how I read all of his lines. I thought the relationship with Lore and Castor was kind of cute, but I think one of the issues was that they were already in love with each other to the start, and there was no tension, it seemed, or no build up to, you know, whenever they kissed, which honestly I can't even remember in the book when their first kiss was. Was it after she fought Bellin? Probably not, but to be honest, I just didn't care that much. But yeah, there were no like sitting in a bar drinking milkshakes scenes, which what I mean by that is not literally sitting in a bar drinking milkshakes, but it's the scene where everyone, you know, there's like stuff happening they need to attend to, like, oh, Wrath just stuffed children into an ox. That's not cool. But, you know, right now we're just gonna chill, we're just gonna drink some milkshakes, have a laugh, you know, like there needs to be scenes that build the rapport between the other characters. But yeah, I wanted a scene where they just kind of worked on getting to know each other, you know, throwing in a few jokes, and I don't mean Castor's really terrible jokes that he just threw in whenever Lore was sad to be quirky. I don't know, it just felt a bit off to me. I know I shouldn't be comparing it to like the Lost Hero series, but I kind of am just because I read it recently and, you know, it's also about Greek mythology, but I just really got attached to those characters, and I'm just trying to think, why did I get attached to those characters and not so much these characters? And I think one thing is that they each had their side story and their backstory. I mean, in Lore, Castor did have his side plot where he doesn't know what he is, and I thought that was really interesting, and, you know, it did go back and forth between the present and the past about Lore and Castor's relationship and, you know, his cancer and stuff like that. I think that was a better development than the other characters, because I can't think of, you know, Van doesn't really have like a side plot, Miles doesn't have a side plot. Also, another thing on character development, Alexandra should have worked more on the relationship between Van and Miles. It felt more like an afterthought. I think, you know, the ending was more interesting than like the rest of the book. If they were dating throughout the book, that would have been a lot more cute. Like, just think Alec and Magnus. Cute. You know, I feel like I didn't get to know any dynamic between the other characters' family life, their internal struggles, and I think that is what made it really hard to connect with these characters. For instance, Iggy and I was watching Jericho yesterday, and Iggy compared the acting to video game acting. Not really the acting more, so it was like the writing, but you know, there were just characters who have their thing. They're like, oh, I'm the country boy, and I give you a pumpkin pie. And that's their character, that's it in video game. Whereas whenever you read a book or watch a movie, there are these three-dimensional beings who do make you pumpkin pie and live on a farm, but they also have dreams. Sometimes I feel like the flashbacks were a bit awkward. I know it was probably one of those things where she put it in between moments of tension and big action to make you keep reading, but I felt like it slowed the pacing down for me, and I wanted to keep just, you know, turning the page and find out what happens. Instead, I feel like the majority of the flashbacks could have been put into kind of one thing, except the big reveal at the end of how she hid the shield. To me, the last 50 pages were the best, because I think that's when it really picked up. I think the part where Lore was spying on Athena and Wrath was like, daughter of Perseus, how good of you to bring your god one last gift. You know, that part kind of was cool because it made me feel like it was the beginning of a boss battle in like a video game. Yes, I've been playing too much Hades, I know it.
Ever stubborn, aren't you? Maybe my whip might make you reconsider whatever it is that you're attempting here.
And I mean, I kind of had a feeling that Lore was gonna become a god. I just didn't know how. I thought she was gonna steal Wrath's power actually, because they kept talking about how she was angry all the time. And I'm like, I could see her being angry Wrath. I think it would have been more of a shock for Athena to have been bad if she was kind of good in the beginning. Like, she was always kind of this like stiff, cold, I don't know, faceless being. I know she wasn't literally faceless, but to me she was just kind of like, I think if she had used her power more too to help Lore, that would have been cool, because I feel like the main display of power we saw was from Wrath. If she and Castor, just in general, I just wanted to see more magical stuff, but if she had used her power on Lore's behalf to kill things or whatever, or like maybe she did this really huge act, like if she was able to say save Heartkeeper, or I don't know, just do something bigger to the story, then I feel like it would have been more of a shock. And you would have been more sad that she was bad, instead of being like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. I think with all of the death and dying in this book, whenever so many of the gods died brutally or people died, I think that kind of made the rest of the death in the book not feel as that big of a deal. Again, I guess I just want more build up. Like whenever, you know, you don't get any information from Heartkeeper pretty much, and then you see Tidebringer, someone who like they thought was dead, and then you find out she's alive, and then she automatically dies. Like that's kind of annoying. You just want to see what they're about. You just kind of want to get to know them more before you just kill them. Like take them on a date first. Killing happens on the second date. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on this book. I'm just gonna call that a wrap. If you have any other book recommendations, leave them in the comments below. Maybe I'll do a review on them. I don't know. I am trying to read more this year. Usually I only read around 1 to 2 books a year outside of school because I'm a slow reader, and I don't know, it's just hard for me to get through a book. I'll start it, but never finish it. So please leave recommendations. I'm trying to get through 21 books in 2021, which for many people, they get through in a month, but it's a challenge for me. And let me know if you agreed with any of my comments, what you thought on lore, and I'll see you in the next video.